What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, I'm going to give my full Season 1 review of a Netflix show called The Get Down. Now, this show is, I want to call it new, but they aired the first part of Season 1 last summer, so some of you may have seen the first half of Season 1 last year. And now they just aired part 2 this weekend. Good show. I enjoyed it. Is it great? No. I'll let you know my complaints in a minute. First, I want to talk about all the things I like. Before I get to that, let me tell you what the show's about. It takes place in the late 70s. It's New York City. Those of you who are familiar with New York City in the 70s and 80s know it was not a great place to live. It was poverty-stricken, drugs, crime, and it was just falling apart. Nobody fixed anything. The cops didn't protect anything. It was just a terrible place to live if you weren't filthy rich in the 70s and 80s. So, just to give you an idea of the setting. Now, it's about a group of teens, older teens, some of them younger, who live, they're from the South Bronx. That's where most of the show takes place. And they're all immersed in music in some way, shape, or form. All the while trying to live in this area and deal with the problems that come with living in this type of neighborhood. Now, it's not as cliche and typical as you think it's going to be. Oh, poor kids from the ghetto rise and make it in the music business. No, it's more realistic than that. It's more, it's really more focused on their lives and why they're immersing themselves in music. More that than it is about the climbing out of the ghetto to become a superstar kind of deal, right? Okay, so we have two main characters. There's a bunch of characters that are important and integral to the story, but there's only two main characters I'm going to talk about in the review, and I'll let you guys watch it for yourselves to learn about all the other characters, okay? So you have Ezekiel and you have Mylene. Of course, they're like lovers, boyfriend, girlfriend thing. It's not as cliche as it sounds, or once you see it, it'll work for you. It didn't work for me in the first episode, but by episode 2, I was like, all right, I can see where they're going with this. I get it. So Mylene is poised to be the next disco queen. People know about her and her singing ability and all that, and that's the world she's headed towards. She's somebody who, for her age, she looks a lot older than she is. She's extremely sexy. She has a great singing voice, so she's everything that, a record label would want, right? And then you have Ezekiel, who is this super smart kid. He's definitely, if you look at him, he looks a lot younger than he is. But he's poised to go to an Ivy League school. But he's also nice with rhymes and with rapping and music and all that. So that's your two main characters, and that's, the world that you're dealing with. Now, yeah, there's criminals. There's tons of, let me start by saying there's tons of adults, actors that you're going to know in this. I'm not going to start rambling them off because they're not the stars of this piece. The stars are really the kids. It's a show for adults, totally 100% for adults, even though teens are the main cast. But they're the stars of the show. So I'm not going to ramble off all the names of the adult actors that you'll know in this. But trust me, you will know some, and they're all solid, good actors and actresses. So trust that definitely going in. All right, so you get what it's about, right? Now there's other things going on besides the music business. There's the criminal stuff. There's from that time, graffiti was huge. There's graffiti stuff. There's stuff with the parents, and there's stuff about pretty much everything you could think of in a teen's life. But trust me, it's geared towards adults. There's things in this you wouldn't want certain parents wouldn't want their teens to see. Drug use, a lot of sex stuff, and whatever. But like no real nudity or hardcore profanity. A little bit of profanity though. All right. So all the acting is pretty solid. All right. Wait. Before I get into the acting, let me say this: the way they gear the show, and it took me an episode or two to really get this, but it's geared towards that era. So it's kind of, they try to make it feel like it's something that came out of the late 70s, early 80s. So at times some of the acting feels a little cheesy, but I think that that's the direction that that a lot of the actors were given, was to come across as a little cliche or a little cheesy or a little over the top, because that fits in with the movies of that era. Go back and watch some of the movies of that era, especially the blaxploitation stuff like Shaft and Superfly, Dolomite, that type of stuff. It has that type of feel to it, and some of the characters would definitely fit in those movies perfectly. But don't let that deter you. It's not all that, but that's in it, you know? So if you're a fan of that stuff, definitely check in. Just like if you're a fan of musical shows, even though this show is not a musical, they're not breaking out into songs every 2 seconds, but there is music in it. It's involved. Music is the what drives the plot in this show. So I guess you can call it the MacGuffin, right? Isn't that what a MacGuffin is? I think so. I'll look that up later. But if you're a fan of either one of those genres, the 70s, 80s, blaxploitation, or even just movies from that era, period, or you're a fan on TV shows from that era too, or you're a fan of musical stuff and stuff about the music business and how the music business works, whether it be movies or shows, this is a very cinematic show. It's handled more like a movie, like an HBO show would handle it, where it feels like something that could be in the movies as opposed to something you're watching on TV. Now, as far as a few things I didn't like, but for the most part, I like the show. It's solid. It's enjoyable. It's well written for the most part. It makes sense. The characters make sense. Their actions make sense. It doesn't feel cheesy or corny. There's even some moments in it that are a little unexpected, or I wouldn't want to call them a twist, but it's something that you may not see coming, but it all feels natural. The way it's written, everything feels like real life. So to me, the way it unfolds, it's in such a natural way where you don't say, oh, I saw that coming, or, oh, I didn't see that coming. You just feel like, oh, wow, that's a fucked up thing to happen, or, oh, that's the way it is sometimes with life. It feels like real life. It's one of those shows, in my opinion. As long as you can get past how in some aspects of the show can seem a little bit cheesy in the performance aspect of it. My other complaint, I'm sorry, I didn't even say my first complaint, is the writing. Like I said, in some points, it feels a little over the top, a little cheesy, and at times a little soap opera. But if you can get past Empire, because I couldn't do it, but that show is way too soapy for me. It's definitely not as soapy as something like Empire. But, you know, you feel it more than like something like Vinyl. That was a show about the music business that had no music in it. So it's got like the performances of Vinyl with the music, like the way they integrate music in Empire is how they integrate it here. Where it's not like just people bursting out in the songs. It's showing you the creation of songs. It's showing you the performance of a song. It's showing you the recording of a song. You get what I'm saying? And my other complaint is the music, the way the music is handled. Now, not that it's bad music, it's all good music. Nas was an executive producer of the first episode, and I believe he writes a lot of the rhymes in it. I'm not 100% sure in that, but when you hear some of the people rap, it sounds like shit that Nas would write. What was I saying? The music. So not that it's bad music, it's good music, but at times it doesn't feel like it's from that era. There's only a couple. There's a lot of songs in, I would say there's a lot of musical stuff in the whole first season. And there's a small portion of them, like I'd say a quarter of the songs, that feel like they're too modern. Also in the language that a lot of the people use, the slangs, you hear a lot of little modern slang words come out. Now it doesn't take you out of it because the production design and the costumes are so good, and just the whole look of everything looks so 70s and 80s that when they slip in those things, it doesn't really take you out of it. But me being somebody who grew up in the 80s and I know a lot about that era, especially of New York, I noticed it. Let's just say that. So New Yorkers, you'll probably definitely notice the things I'm talking about. If you're not from New York, you may not even pick up on that stuff. But the music, I think, no matter where you're from, you'll say, well, that song seems a little too modern for, 1978 or whatever. But all in all, the show is solid. It's a good show. It's performed decently, better than most of the stuff on TV, but not as good as the best stuff on TV. Let's say that. But it definitely has a cinematic feel to it. And you'll enjoy the music and the musical aspects, especially if you're a fan of hip hop, you're a fan of disco, or you're just a fan of the musical show and movie genre, right? So I'll give this one a 3.5 out of 5. The reason why I wouldn't give it a 4 is because I think the performances could be a little bit more solid, but who knows? Season 2, it could step it up a lot. And remember, the show is hardcore 70s. So if you don't like stuff from the 70s, if you don't get a lot of comic book culture and kung fu culture and hip hop culture and DJ culture, you may not like this show. I'll tell you the truth. Even if you are a fan of good TV. So you may take a half a point or even a point off of it and give it a 2.5 or a 3 if you're not a fan of those things. If you are, you might even give it a 4. I don't know. But you see for yourself. The Get Down, Netflix. It's on there right now. Full first season. Go check it out. Then come back and hit my comments up and let me know what you guys thought of the show. I don't hear enough people talking about this show. I think it's good enough of a show where there should be more buzz going around about the Get Down. So that's it for this review. Like I said, chime in down below. You got anything to say? And you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.